You are watching KUTV Primetime News with Omondi Otieno.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us on KUTV Primetime News. Remember, you can share thoughts with us on our social media platforms on Facebook, KUTV Kenya, and on Twitter, KUTV_Kenya. Health is wealth, they say. Now, staying healthy is not necessarily about being physically fit, but also includes emotional, social, and most importantly, mental well-being. Tonight, we are joined by Mr. Oduor Kevin, our health specialist, for a discussion on the mental health. Mr. Kevin Oduor, thank you so much for dedicating your time once again to be with us on KUTV.
Thank you
right.
for bringing me back also.
Right.
Yeah.
Now into the discussion of the night. Kindly bring us to speed with the theme of the 2021 World Mental Health Day, which was mental health in an unequal world. So what are some of the activities that marks this day?
Okay, thank you, Omondi. And let me first of all underscore that mental health is, of public health significance, owing to the fact that a lot of people right now are faced with these mental health issues. And in looking at the theme for 2020, that was mental health for all, and also making it a reality. Now it dawned on us that there are a lot of inequalities that still exist, while mental health has gained a lot of traction, and people are now talking about mental ill health. Still there are a lot of inequalities that are still persistent and still remaining, and so that's why that informed the theme for the 2021, which is mental health in the unequal world. Of course, this was voted for. It was a global vote to have it as the theme for 2021 by World Federation for Mental Health, and also their supporters, and also people of goodwill, who just wanted us to highlight some of the inequalities that still exist in relation to mental health. And so they are so vast, and that informed the theme. Looking at the activities that characterize this year's World Mental Health Day, we can talk about an open conversation where people just talk about issues about mental health,
Right.
and also people sharing their stories, because a lot of people who are presenting mental health issues they're not talking about them. It's also an opportunity for us also to lobby for investment in mental health, and also ensure that these inequalities are also addressed. Yeah, so those are some of the activities. Of course, deep dive conversation around the same. Yeah, there are a lot of other things that can be done on that front.
Right. Now, what could be some of the factors that make this world to be unequal, to be polarized in a way, and how are these issues being addressed so that the world becomes a neutral place for everyone to cohabit in? Yeah.
Oh, well. You saying that it become a neutral place. I don't know whether we can really reach a place where the world is neutral.
Right.
Owing to the fact that still there's widening gaps. The gap between the haves and the have-nots continue to maybe become bigger and bigger. And so, humbly, I may just mention that becoming neutral world may not really be possible. But again, the things that have made this world become unequal are very many. First, we can look at the current technological advancement. If maybe I talk about right now, there are a lot of technologies we are being introduced to. Look at right now we are in the fourth industrial revolution. And so there are things like the blockchain, big data, and these are technology that are coming right now, and they start from those rich countries. And so you find that before they maybe come to these low and mid-low income countries, then it takes a while. Sure. And so that continues to widen the gap between the wealthy and those who are poor. So the poor will continue to maybe experience abject poverty. The rich will continue to be rich.
Right.
Also, this world is becoming increasingly polarized because of the global crisis. Look at COVID-19 pandemic, which has highlighted a lot of inequalities. And of course, polarization, when we talk about polarization, we look at how the world is being divided into opposing groups,
Right.
like those who are having and those who do not have. And so you find that even right now, if you look at COVID-19, how it's addressed in terms of vaccination, you'll find that there are countries that already right now have vaccinated over 50% of their population. And the conversation is even changing to they are talking about booster shots. And while even in Kenya, hardly 3% of our population is already vaccinated. Look at Burundi. They have not even vaccinated even a single person, or their vast majority. And so you find that that is what is making this world to become increasingly polarized. And also maybe you should talk about, right now there's a lot of conversation around national solidarity over global solidarity. It's lost on us that a problem in one corner of the world is really affecting us all. Because again, if you talk about global crisis like this COVID-19, we are not safe until everybody in the world, of course, is safe.
Right.
And so choosing that national solidarity over global solidarity has made the world become increasingly polarized, and it's so unequal.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Oduor, narrowing down to mental health, what are some of the symptoms of mental health, and probably, because people might be suffering mental health when they don't know. So what are some of these mental health problems and their symptoms, so that the audience is brought to speed with now this is what mental health entails?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, rightly mentioned, there are a lot of mental health problems that people present with. Of course, there are those that are common. And first of all, let me underscore the fact that mental health issues are also included as one of the NCDs, or the non-communicable diseases.
Right.
And so in terms of WHO listing, you will talk about the common mental health issues like suicidal ideation. We'll talk about things like depression. We'll talk about anxiety. We'll talk about schizophrenics, which are also others, we call it psychosis. And we'll also talk about post-traumatic stress disorders. And so maybe just to talk a bit about depression. Depression, I mean, people experiencing a bit of lack, they are low in spirit.
Right.
They are plunging into a state of, let me call it despondency, that is being low in spirit. And also they feel lack of self-worth, they feel low. And if you look at anxiety, of course, anxiety is, more or less the same as depression, but again, depression is deep. Right. If you look at schizophrenics, these are people are presenting with hallucination or delusions. They are the people who sometimes they feel like, they also live with paranoia. They feel like somebody is, after them, somebody want to kill them. And of course, this present mostly among people who are using alcohol. And if you look at also dementia, which is also one of the mental health problems, it's a lack of memory. People cannot remember the things that that happened a while back. And also post-traumatic stress disorders, which present after people maybe have been encountered maybe traumatic events, maybe accidents, or maybe wars and all this. So those are the common mental health problems that we can talk about. Of course, there are others. There are a lot. And
right.
Yeah. You can't exhaust them.
Now, Daktari, in an attempt to deal with the problem, so what are some of the causes, or rather, what are some of the risk factors of these mental health problems? And maybe you could also highlight on how best can we deal with them. Yeah.
Yeah, you've rightly mentioned, and I like that you're talking about risk factors. For mental health, of course, again, I have to just mention that there are a lot of risk factors or causes, let's just say. I can talk about one of the causes is also stressful environments. People who have lived in stressful environments, let me say even work environment, that really contribute to mental health problems. There are also people who are, it's also genetic as one of the risk factors. The people who inherit these genes from their family or the family line, and so they become susceptible to mental illness, and not necessarily present with mental illness, but they become susceptible. And when we talk about also maybe expectations in life, there are people maybe you expected that your girlfriend will marry you, and then you proposed and you are declined, and so that can also contribute or maybe lead to mental health problems. We can talk about issues like maybe stressful events, war, or maybe sexual assault, and somebody assaulted you, and so you may live your life, you may live in fear, and you may not want to maybe associate with, maybe you may not have maybe a satisfying sexual life. So this is also contributing to mental health issues. And of course, I've talked about the environment, which also, contribute a lot in terms of mental health. Anxiety is also, so such things.
So maybe you could highlight to us on how do we deal with some of these problems, because you find some of these problems, there are things someone can deal with individually, if not going an extra mile of, talking to someone, maybe going to organizations. How can we deal with some of these problems?
Yeah, well, there are many ways in which we can deal with mental health issues. Okay, first of all is us to encourage open discussion and open conversation around issues that affect us. Of course, when we share all, what we are going through in life, we can get help. And so it's us to share or encourage an open space, not open, safe space where people can talk about mental health issues, where they can share their problems and they can also talk about what they're going through. And also supporting initiatives that are also towards mental health or addressing mental health issues. We can join those initiatives. We can also come up with maybe community initiatives that also can support the same. And also let us try also to, help those who are also going through these issues, and also try to encourage them. And when we do that, we can address these mental health issues. Again, looking at it on the maybe local or let me say national level, it requires a bit of policy realignment. Of course, we have not had very progressive policies around mental health. Of course, Kenya is doing something right now, but in terms of even funding, it has not been so proportionate. It's a bit disproportionate if you look at the overall budgeting for health. And so it requires also us to look at budgeting and also ensure that there is proportionate funding for mental health, so that we also treat it as a disease and not just a disorder, so that we address it with a lot of vigor and also give it the attention it deserves. Yeah.
Right. Now, talking of, having a safe environment to open up, there is those stigmatization and also discrimination that comes with mental health problems. So how can we deal with this? Because, this stigmatization, it ends up affecting families at large. How can we deal with this?
Yeah, stigmatization is real, and also let me use the term prejudice. Of course, people who present with mental health issues have faced, unsurmountable prejudice, and they've had to live with them, and it's taking a toll order on them, and so the problem arises from the fact that you find that people think or assume that people who are presenting mental health problems are just playing lazy, or they are just lack willpower, or they are not being people who want to maybe lift a finger to do something. So such prejudice and people lack of understanding, the lack of understanding of mental health issues are also brought us thus far, where people are still talking about, or maybe not really talking well of the people who are facing this, presenting with mental health issues. So it requires us really to understand and also encourage people to not to talk negatively about such people, just to also ensure that they can listen to them, and also support them, because there also that need for social support, so that people can address this stigmatization, and also initiatives that are supporting or encouraging, discouraging stigmatization should also be supported, to ensure that we deal with stigmatization at this time we should not be talking about this stigmatization. We should be talking about bigger things like maybe funding or and not really stigmatization.
Right. Now, drifting a little bit to COVID-19, the pandemic at hand. How has, since the pandemic struck 1 year plus ago, how has it affected the mental state of the society and probably the world at large?
Well, this is exciting. I did a research on the mental health of young people. Of course, that looking at young people in Nairobi, and some of the findings were that we came up with very, very, very. Let me say striking,
right?
Because of the fact that people are talking about isolation, things like isolation or mobility restriction, them not being allowed maybe to do what they love to do, things like maybe going on recreational activities, things like gym and clothes, and so people are finding themselves in silos. They can't visit their friends, and these has exacerbated mental health issues, and also people not able to even be with their loved ones. And more striking is the fact that a lot of people have lost their loved ones, and also experienced these. You look at right now job losses. A lot of people have lost their jobs, and looking at that, people are not even sure what shall become of tomorrow, and that has led to a lot of these mental health issues that we are experiencing right now. So COVID has taken a toll on maybe on our lives, looking at the job losses, deaths, and also lack of certainty that the future will be bright again, and without also COVID vaccine that other countries have already vaccinated their population.
Right. Now, talking about COVID-19, because we are seeing the World Health Organization as, really come into play to ensure that people live their normal lives. Are they also making enough efforts to ensure that the mental state is brought back to where it is, where it was actually, where people can, go to the social places, they can interact with their loved ones? Are the efforts enough so far?
Mental health response has not been, enough, as I would say. Of course, there are things that have reversed the gains, and I've said even COVID-19 right now has reversed the gains that have been made. Of course, it had gained traction with mental health also being included as one of the NCDs, and that was a very profound step that was taken by WHO to just include as a disease and not just as a disorder, or we just look at it. So I would comment, of course, there are efforts that have been there, but it's not really commensurate, and it's not really bringing forth what we would expect in terms of response. The interventions are not really great because, again, funding for the same, of course, funding will appear everywhere. Funding is not proportionate, and so still we have a long way to go. We are not out of the woods yet.
Right. Now, I do want now to narrow down to you specifically with Starlink INC. You've really campaigned for NCDs. You've taught people about NCDs, and you've made greater steps in enlightening people with this. Now, so what can you tell me? What are your plans now with the mental health, considering that we are now from the World Mental Health Day, and probably are there plans you having concerning this mental health?
Yeah, of course, as an organization, we still heavy on these mental health projects.
Right.
And of course, right now we are still doing the NCD 365 project, which we provide or maybe disseminate information on mental health. And even this month, in line with the World Mental Health Day, we have been doing this, and also shared messages on the same, information on the same, of course, curated and also referenced from WHO. And so for us as an organization, ours is to continue working in this field, and also because mental health is one of the NCDs which we continue to cover. We are also sensitive about the global calendars, and so we can't miss celebrating these days, and also just ensuring that our voices are also heard. And there are a lot of other projects we have done. There are also projects that we continue to do. We engage in maybe seminars, conferences, of course, in relation to COVID, to mental health. Sorry, and I mean, we also have a project that we are currently coming up with that we'll also see as addressing these mental health issues. Yeah.
Right. Now, Kelvin, in a nutshell. I read it on the UN system panel discussion. The agenda for week 2 was supporting LGBTQI plus personnel. What could be your comment on this agenda with regards that how the society is shunning these practices of LGBTQ?
Of course, I mean, this is now when we talk about LGBTQ, the lesbian, maybe those who are not straight. I think this is now, I mean, in terms of, if you look at it from the global perspective, people are supporting that, I mean, people who want to, their sexual orientation, they shouldn't be shunned from maybe the society because of their sexual orientation. And so for me, I support the fact that this, of course, a world that everybody maybe decide what they want to do, and it's your right to do what you want to do, provided you're not stepping on other people's toes. And so for me, I'm really looking forward to see how the agenda is going to be implemented, and also going to support and ensure that the world is becoming a free world where people are just, free to do what they want to do, provided there's free will, and also people can express themselves.
Right. Now, even as we wind up this discussion, Kevin, what could be your final words to the population and the world at large on this matter of mental health?
Let me just maybe mention that mental health issues are real. And so these are things that we must tackle head on, and let us also be watchful and also be on the watch out and look for, try to encourage a discussion on these mental health issues, and also look forward to also sharing our stories, and through that we can also encourage other people who are going through these problems. I was one of the people who maybe did not believe that there's mental health issues really, but I experienced mental health issues, and so that encouraged me to share, and I got help. And so I believe that when we share, then we can always get help. And so let us just be watchful. Let us support our friends. Let us, encourage safe spaces where we can talk about mental health. And I think we will, address it, and the rewards will be promising.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, thank you so much, Oduor Kevin, for availing yourself for this discussion on mental health. We hope to have you probably here again on health matters we still need to talk about. There's a lot we need to talk about here.
Thank you.
Right. Now, thank you so much for staying with us throughout the discussion. That has been Oduor Kevin, who is a health specialist. We are taking a very short break here on KUTV Primetime News. In a moment, we shall be coming back with the rest of the bulletin. So keep it right here. See you on the other side.